Hey guys, so you've got a buyer that wants to buy land and not really sure where to go from here. So let's have a little conversation around what we need to be asking and what we need to be figuring out. Because it's a little different transaction from residential real estate where most of us spend our time. Um, there's a lot of the process is going to be the same. There's some things in the process that are going to be a little bit different. Uh, but what you're going to find is the big difference is going to be in the questions that you need to ask and really making sure that you're guiding them in the right direction and that you're doing the right things to protect them from making a bad decision. And so the first question you really have to ask when someone tells you that they're thinking about buying land or they're interested in buying land is you really need to get to the heart of why. Because why they're wanting to buy the land is going to point us in a lot of different directions. And our approach is going to be very different. So they could be looking to buy land because they want to put a mobile home on it. They may be wanting to buy land because they want to build. They may be just wanting to buy land to hold as a potential investment. They may be wanting to buy land to develop and turn into a neighborhood. They may be wanting to buy land just for recreation. They want a place to hunt and fish and run their ATVs. So all of those are going to have very different sets of questions around it. And you need to know enough about each of those scenarios to be able to ask them the right questions. And so let's start with some of the simpler ones, and that's going to be if they're buying it for recreation. Not a lot you need to know about that. It's just going to be a matter of whether they like the land or not. There's very little government control there. It's their land. They can use it how they want to for the most part. Maybe issues if they're wanting to use it for hunting and firing guns. They just need to make sure that they know what the county laws are and that they're going to be able to do what they want on the property. Okay, so that's going to be our simplest scenario. The next one would probably be if they're looking to develop the land. And someone that is thinking about developing the land, where I'd want to take that conversation would be what experience do they have? Who are they going to be using for the development? Because what we mean by somebody developing the land, they're putting in the utilities, they're putting in the roads, but they aren't necessarily building the houses on it. And this could be both commercial or residential, but you're probably not talking to someone without any experience in it. If they have zero experience in it, wow, that's a huge, massive risk that they're taking. And probably need to have some really deep conversations about, do they have a business plan for that? Do they have the financing available for that? Because that's going to look really different. The wanting to put a mobile home on there is probably going to be our next most common, or probably our most common question. And we really have two different questions that we need to ask, and they're similar to if we want to build, but I'm going to come back to the build in just a second because it goes a little step farther. If they're wanting to put a mobile home on it, we need to check with the county zoning or have them check and make sure that zoning allows them to put a mobile home on it and what the restrictions are there. We're going to have some other questions answered with that. Is there access to sewer, or are they going to have to put septic on it? Okay, if they're going to have to put septic on it, that brings up a whole other series of questions, and that we need to make sure that the ground will percolate at the right rate, and that we're going to be able to put a septic system on there. And that's something that the county controls. So the county sets the rules for what sort of a septic system you have to put in there based on how quickly the ground absorbs the water. This is going to be true both for a mobile home and for a traditional home. So you're going to need what's called a level 3 PERT test, and that has to be conducted by an approved soil scientist for that particular county or area. Often the seller is going to have done one. If they have not done one, we want to ask in our offer to have the seller do one, and have our due diligence period be long enough that we have the results back from that PERT test before the end of due diligence. So we have the option that if it turns out that putting in a septic system is going to be too expensive, that we can get out of that contract. Okay, but if you're not in a very rural area, the likelihood that the county is going to allow you to put a mobile home in there keep getting smaller and smaller. So that's not an easy thing to do, to find a place to put a mobile home. If they're wanting to, and this is one that I've run into, they want to build a mobile home park. Again, back to zoning. Will zoning allow you to do that? And what's their plan for developing that space? Because they're going to have utilities run to every single space. And we're going to have whatever system they're going to have. So it's going to be true for an RV park. How are the guests going to get rid of waste? If it's a mobile home park, how do we get everybody attached to the sewer or to the septic system? So lots of questions in there that you're really going to have to dig deep, and you're going to have to do a lot of questioning. But the most common request that we get for reason people want to buy land is they want to buy land and build. And the misconception out there is buying land to build is cheaper than buying an existing home. And that is blatantly untrue. And so we've got to be prepared to have that conversation, so that they understand that the expense is going to be isn't going to be less. It's potentially going to cost a lot more, and it's going to take a long time. We buy a piece of land, we've got to build on, we've got different financing we have to deal with. We've got the construction and all the time and the government regulation that we have to deal with. There's a lot that goes into that. So let's just kind of unpack that for just a second so that makes sense to you, why buying land and building is not cheaper than buying an existing home. So let's take D.R. Horton as an example. They're one of the largest builders here in our area. Well, when D.R. Horton goes to build a home, they order their materials in bulk. They hire their contractors in bulk. And what I mean by that is the house has to have a window package, has to have a roofing package, has to have a framing package, where they're paying for all the materials, all the windows at one time, all the appliances at one time, all the roofing materials at one time. But they don't do that just for one house. They will go buy all the windows they need for 10 houses at one time. And when they buy in that sort of bulk, what sort of pricing do you think they get? Better pricing. Yeah. When they go to hire the contractor that's going to install that window package, they don't hire that contractor to come and install the windows for this one house. They sign a contract that they're going to install the windows for these 10 houses. What do you think happens to their labor cost? It's cheaper. Okay. So understand, when you're going to buy land and build, you're probably going to pay more for the land. You're probably going to pay more for the financing. You are going to pay more for your materials. You're going to pay more for your labor. you are probably going to end up spending at least 10% more for the home when you choose to buy and build, and you have all the headaches in the management of that process that you have to deal with. So from a saving standpoint, if that's their thinking, that's an easy one to get them away from. That is not going to be cheaper. If they think it's going to be an easier process, the things that you really need to point them to, or if they decide that, you know, we just absolutely, we want a unique house. We're willing to pay the extra money, but we want a custom built house. We know exactly what we want. Then we need to prep them for that. And really, there is an easy button for this, but I'll help you get to that through our conversation. Because we're going to go build a property, we're going to buy the land, and then we're going to build the property. The thing that's going to make the biggest difference is what will the county allow us to do. Okay, so we have to take into consideration, first off, the zoning. Is it zoned for single family residential? And what sort of building restrictions do they have? Because we may not be able to build the house that we want and intend to. Because as you go from county to county, and that's the reason I can't give you any universal truths about this, because every county has their own set of rules. Some counties are going to tell you that your house has to have brick front. Some are going to tell you that it has to be on either a crawl space or a basement. You're going to have some counties that tell you that any siding has to be hardy plank siding. They're going to have minimum square foot requirements for the home. They're going to have minimum setbacks. It needs to be so far from the road, so far from the sidelines of the property in the back. So they're going to dictate some rules that we have to operate in between, and the house we want may not meet those requirements. It may be too big for the lot that we're wanting to buy. It may not have the look that the county's willing to approve. The floor plan may not have the features that they're willing to approve. And then we have, does that particular property we want to build, is it suited for that property? If we want a basement, you know, we can't have that on a level piece of land. Okay, so as a consumer, how do you know if this piece of land is going to accommodate the house we want to build? Okay, need to know, do we have access to sewer, or is it going to go on septic? We need to know if the land that we're looking to put it on, is it buildable? Are we going to run into issues with marshland or rock, which can also impact and drive up the cost of a particular property? So with all of these concerns and making sure that everything goes smoothly, what's our easy button? Because that consumer probably doesn't know the answer to all those questions. And our job is not to figure all that out for them. We're not going to be there with them through the construction process. We're not going to help them pick out the floor plan and go order the floor plan for them. If they're going to design and build, the very first step that they need to take is get in a relationship with the builder, so that they're there as a resource to the client. They can help them determine the floor plan and what they want to build. So they can look at floor plans, modify the floor plans, work with an architect to get exactly what they want designed, find out what the requirements we need in terms of a piece of land. Then we can go find the piece of land. We can make an offer on the piece of land, get that under contract, and then we can have the builder go out during due diligence and make sure everything works the way that we need it to. Okay, they have experience with that, whereas we don't, and the consumer doesn't. So getting that builder involved long before you buy the land is critically important. The other place that builder is potentially going to be a really good resource for you is connecting you with the right lenders. Okay, so not the loan on a new construction property that we're building ourselves looks very different than the loan you take out with a typical mortgage lender on a residential property. So first we have to acquire the land. And in acquiring the land, most lenders don't loan money on land. So we're going to have one of two options. There are some large national lenders that will do land loans. Ag South is a good example of that. Or we're going to need to deal with a local branch, a local lender, not a national lender. Your Wells Fargo, Bank of America, even our Lender Supreme Lending, they're not going to loan on land. But go find that bank that has 1 or 2 or 10 locations, that's a small regional bank or a very local bank. They're going to be your best resource to find financing for that land. Okay. So we're going to take out a land loan, or your consumer is going to take out a land loan for that acquisition. Well, then they also need to pre-qualify for a construction loan or a construction to perm loan. So getting a lender involved and making sure that they qualify for all of this, because how much would it suck to buy the land and then find out you can't get the loan for the construction that you want to do? Okay. So we want to buy, we want to find the lender, and the way construction to perm loans work is it's really a 3-stage process. So once you own the land and you take out a construction to perm loan, the first thing that they do is they pay off the land loan. Okay. Because that becomes part of their equity, their stake in the deal, in case construction doesn't finish, in case something falls apart somewhere along the way. That bank wants to own that land. They don't want to just loan money on the building, because they wouldn't want to spend $300,000 to build a house and then you not pay the $50,000 for the land and the property get foreclosed on because of the $50,000 land loan. And then they're out the $300,000. So they're going to pay that off. That's going to become part of that construction to perm loan. And then they're going to start paying the builder in draws. So they will have a certain timeline, a contract written to where at certain stages of construction, the builder's going to get money. Okay. Until we finally get the CO. Okay. And then when we go to the closing table after the CO, that's when the builder will get their final payment, and your loan will now convert from a construction loan to a traditional mortgage loan. Okay. So there's a lot to digest, and builders would feel most comfortable typically working with a lender they already have experience with. That's the reason finding that builder first is such a really good decision to make. Now, I kind of want to close this out with a few kind of random thoughts. One of the other things that your clients need to be really comfortable with and familiar with, especially if they're buying land as an investment and plan to just sit on it. If they're buying it just for recreation, they're buying it to put a mobile home on it. We have to think about the resale at the end. And what I want you to know, land is not easily sold. Okay. Even if you go look in Gwinnett County right now and go look at the average length of time that properties on the market. So if you go look at the active listings right now, the days on market's over 200 days. If you go back and look at the the pieces of land that have sold over the last year, the average days on market for those pieces of land is 120 days. So if somebody thinks that, well, I'll just buy it, and then if things don't work out the way that I wanted, I will sell it and get my money back out of it. One, it's probably going to take time, more time than they're going to be comfortable with. And two, they're going to end up losing money on it because it's not going to appreciate as fast as a property with a house on it. And when you take the commissions away for the sale of the property, they're probably going to have to bring a check to the closing table, or they're going to lose a large part of whatever they put down on that property. So not saying don't buy land. I'm just saying you have to go in with a knowing what the risks are there. And lastly, for you as a real estate agent, one of the things for you to keep in mind is let's say that we're going to buy a piece of land for our client for them to build a house on. Love that and want to help them get to their dream of home ownership. And if that's the right pathway for them, fantastic. But your role is just in the acquisition of the land. So you're going to spend $50,000, or your client's going to spend $50,000 acquiring the land to build on. That's what your commission is going to be on, is that $50,000. You don't get paid on the construction. You don't get paid on the final product. They may have a $600,000 house at the end of the day, but you're not going to receive a commission on that. That relationship, that contract, is between the consumer and the builder directly. You're not involved with that. So as soon as you get to the closing table on the land, you are out of the equation and aren't involved with any of the rest of that. And that's one of the reasons why if you're going to walk a client through this, your duty and your responsibility is to make sure that before the purchase of the land, they're going to be able to do all the things that they want to do after it. But you're not going to get paid for or be involved with anything that follows after the closing table for the land. Hope that makes good sense for you guys. There's probably a few other conversations that I want to have in here. And I just want to make sure before I wrap up that I've covered everything that I wanted to cover with you. I think that may be it. So ask lots of questions. Make sure they know what they're getting into before they do it. Odds are they're not wanting to buy land and build. They're probably better off going and buying a property that already exists. And even if they can't find a property that's exactly what they want, maybe they can find that property that they can spend a little bit more and make that property what it is that they want. That gets them into that home much faster, and involves a lot less risk, and it's probably going to end up costing them less in the long run. So ask tons of questions, make sure they've got clarity, do your research, and if there's anything else we can help you with, don't hesitate to reach out to us. And hope this conversation was helpful. Bye, guys.